Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Andor episodes 5 and 6, The Axe Forgets and the Eye. So I took some notes for episode 5 because I did that last week. Super random that I did. I'm very glad I did. I also happened to get super sick last week on my birthday. So I watched it and like the day of, I was like, I'm going to watch this, it'll be good. I was sick and I did like nothing at all last week. So I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. If I can't do it on the weekend, I literally just don't have time throughout the week. So episodes 5 and 6 are going to be combined together this time. And I'm glad, like I said, I got like 5 notes, really. So I'll remember as best I can the last episode. And of course, we'll just go from 5 going into 6 and expectations going into, I believe, the last 6. Yeah, because we're halfway through. It's 12 episodes for the season. Episode 5, really good. First note that I have, fruit from Rebels. They have, I forgot what it was called. I wish I could remember, but like that orange spiky fruit was like invented in the Rebels animated series, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but I was pretty sure. I'm like, I think that's not just from Rebels. It was literally created like within the entire universe on the show Rebels. So it's like they had that little orange spiky fruit. I think that was invented in Rebels. Obviously, you'd have to look it up. The very next note, because we're starting off with whatever the dude's name is. I didn't even bother because I'm like, I just don't like him. And I'm really weird like that. I'm already bad with names. I think I mentioned this before. I'm bad with names in general. And then I just don't even bother when it comes to actual villains. I'm just like, I just don't like you. I don't care. He's not like a cool villain. Not yet. He's just the villain who's down in the dumps. I swear his uncle is going to somehow be in the Empire. His uncle could straight up be the old guy. Like it could be the guy that calls all the meetings and stuff. I'm like, there's no way that this guy is not going to somehow end up involved with the Empire. Like I just don't believe that that's not going to happen. So I'm curious how that's going to end up playing out because they reference, like he's having trouble. Like his uncle is the person that his mom wants to call to get him a job and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I think we all know somehow he's going to end up chasing down Andor. And I like I said, either he'll end up with the woman that's in the Empire now, or he'll just end up joining the Empire, in general. So I thought that was an interesting little moment. But I've never seen a man look so depressed and eat Captain Crunch Oops All Berries, because that's definitely what that was. I was like, his mom just poured a bowl of cereal and I was like, he's got Oops All Berries and he's depressed. And it was really sad to see that. I'm like, Oops All Berries, it's delicious. So I thought that was funny. So that was definitely the note. The next note that I have, so this is during the scene where everyone's kind of chatting around the fire. This is the scene where like whatever that weird crazy milk was that was just disgusting, but it's really good for, milk builds strong bones, all that crap. And Andor is talking to basically the youngest member of the team. And so he pulls out like a bunch of old tech and he's like, see, this thing will help chart the course, as we go like through the eye and stuff, and everything will be good. No matter what, you can't really mess with, the old tech. Like it's like set in stone. Like you can't intercept it. You can't do anything like that. It's just, this thing was made to do this thing and nothing outside of it straight up breaking will stop it from doing that thing. And so he pulls this device out and I was like, that's a camera. I have that camera actually. Like it's an old school camera that you pop up and you take pictures. It's a camera. And I thought that was super funny. I was like, I have that actual camera. I got it from my grandfather. So I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. It kind of fit in line with, people mentioned before the sort of AK-47 that the main woman has, where it's like, oh, it still looks too similar to just the gun as it exists now. They just made it black and like a little bit of white. It was like, yeah, they didn't really change it as much as I thought they did, because I didn't even realize that's what it was until this episode. And then I was like, okay, from a distance, it was okay. And then when we got into episode 6, I was like, oh, I didn't like it. When I saw it up close, I was like, no, it really does just look like an AK-47, but it's just black. I was like, they didn't really change it like they do most weapons. Like that's pretty much what they do with everything. Like everything is like a World War II weapon, but it, they add some bits and pieces on and stuff like that. That's what all the weapons are. And I was like, they didn't really change that. They just made it black. Like it almost looked plastic, really. That was probably like the biggest change. Like the color change of it made it just look like a totally fake gun. It looked like a toy gun to me. But I was like, oh yeah, they really didn't change anything except for making it just a jet black weapon. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I said, episode 4, I didn't notice it at all. And then I watched the review and I was like, oh, it's AK-47. Episode 5, I saw it, but I was like, I saw it at a distance and I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. And then episode 6, I saw it up close because, like I said, it didn't register in episode 4. And I was like, oh, I see why they mentioned that, because I was like, yeah, it's just an AK-47. It's just black and with a little bit of white. Not that it bothers me, but it definitely stood out as like the most normal looking thing there, because not only is it a real world thing, like even the camera, I was like, oh, I like I said, I literally own that camera. But in the context of how they did it, I was still kind of like, yeah, that works. Probably because of the fact that, once again, it's not modern. So it was like, it's an old camera, just like, the World War II guns, where here's a World War II real life weapon. And then we Star Wars'd it. And it's like, okay, well, it's really old and they changed it up. So it's different. And with the camera, they didn't really change anything. Honestly, they just made it like super dark and just like the AK-47. But I don't know. I honestly, just the fact that it was old, I genuinely believe I was just like, yeah, it works. And I don't know. Maybe that's honestly what it is. It's just a thing being old, even though I have like an exact context of literally owning that thing. Never owned an AK-47, never even seen one in person, but I've seen it enough on TV and it's common and current enough that just changing it to black was like, that's weird. It stands out too much. And it's crazy because I'm like, I literally own the camera. I've held the camera in my hand a bunch of times and I'm like, that seems like it still fits though. So I don't know. Obviously, it's all personal preference, but I thought that was interesting. The AK-47 definitely stood out a bit more to me, especially, in episode 6 when it was right up on it. I was like, oh yeah, it is just black. It's just an AK-47, but didn't take me out of it too much. Just obviously something I wanted to bring up because I didn't notice it in episode 4. Saw it have been 5 and then 6. I was like, weird. But the camera I thought was super cool because it was like I said, giant camera nerd. So I was like, I have that camera. That was really cool. So I enjoyed that. The characters, of course, kind of having this back and forth. It keeps ramping up where it's like, they don't know, obviously for them it's Clem, but they don't really know who Andor is. It's like, why is this guy here? He comes in at the last minute. He's supposed to be contingencies and stuff like that. But what's his deal? Like what's going on with this character? Like what is happening with him? We can't really trust him. And then of course it eventually gets to the end of the episode as they're finally making their final push to really get in place for this big mission. And the dude comes up on him and he, cuts the kyber crystal off his neck. And he's like, who is this guy who comes to a heist and brings a crystal worth 30,000 credits? Like, what the F is happening here? Like, we can't trust this dude. And he just tells him, it's like, look, I'm a mercenary. I'm here for the money. That's really it. If you want to quit, don't try to pretend that it's my fault that you want to quit. Like, you can't trust me. He even says, like, it would have been something else even if I told you before. You're just nervous. Like, we're right on the edge of doing this thing. You're nervous. If you want to quit, sure. But don't pretend I'm the only reason that you want to quit. It's just, we can't trust him. The whole thing is dead. It's like, you have doubts in general. It's not my fault. So I thought that was a cool moment. He gets, what we find out is a total fake apology anyway, where it's like, the Empire killed my brother. I'm here for revenge. Crazy. Don't even have a brother, but we'll get to that. So, everything kind of has its moment. It calms down. Everybody's like, okay, at least now we know. It kind of eases the tension just a little bit. Whole episode, everybody's questioning him and his tactics and the fact that he recognizes everyone who is left-handed, right-handed, but kind of prefer, or is left-handed but shoots right. All that stuff. He kind of clocked everybody. It's like, okay, then that was interesting. Also, I put on here, I think it may have been, it wasn't the very last one. It was that the TIE pilot was being a dick, and I thought that was a really funny scene where they just look like farmers, and the TIE pilot could have easily just kept going, but was like, I'm just gonna dip a little bit low right into the valley and just scream over their eardrums, and everybody has to cover their ears because this thing is effing loud. And I was like, that TIE pilot was definitely being a douchebag about that because they could have just kept flying, but they're like, I'm just dip a little bit, just a little close, and freak them out. And it was like, that's just them being a douchebag. It was like, you did not have to do that, but they put that throughout these 3 episodes where the guards will mention, especially in episodes 5 and 6, where we see more of the actual Imperial base from their inside man, and all the references where they're like, the smell, in episode 6, like the people smell, and them killing them off and stuff, or doing whatever they were going to do, where it's like, this is the last time they're ever going to see this place. Who cares? Excuse me. Who cares about them and all this stuff? They're just like, they don't care at all about the indigenous people. It was whatever. It's like, they'll die. What? Who cares? That's the Empire. That's how they made them look. And it was like, okay, it's definitely interesting. And there was one specific scene. There was one final note that I had. And this was for the woman in the Empire. And I wrote a very dumb note that was for a reference. And we saw her take some pills, which is another thing where I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen someone in Star Wars take a pill, because it was like, oh man, I need more energy. And she took a pill. And I wrote, I'm so excited, which is a reference to the very famous episode of Saved by the Bell. If you don't know that reference, just type in, I'm so excited, Saved by the Bell, and you will get it. But that was the first thing I thought. And I just put, I'm so excited. And I knew that that's all I needed to remember the scene. So I thought that was interesting. They're working hard. They're going through the notes still. And I assume in the next arc that we're going to get, that's when she's going to become a more prominent role, because now they've had all of these, kind of scatterings. And that's been our whole thing. Like, I think they even say in episode 5, it's too random to be random. And it's like, okay, they're getting closer and closer to finding all these little things all over the galaxy. And now we have yet another big thing that happened in a completely random place out of nowhere. And it's like, come on. So I definitely think she's going to get that big push. Like, sir, I've seen all these things. Now we have this big thing. Let me at least investigate it since I've already kind of had this suspicion. So I think that's kind of where that's gonna go. But I thought that was cool. I was like, all right. And then of course that episode 5 ends and it's leading into the eye. And boy, oh boy, was that an episode. First off, they killed everybody. I thought they'd kill at least 1 or 2 people. Everybody assumed the kid was gonna die because it's like the kid's too nice. He believes in the cause way too much to actually live. It was very classic. He died. The manifesto goes on to our main character who doesn't want it, but he takes it anyway. But it was just like they were killing everybody. I would assume that they killed, both the guys that died in the base are actually dead. It's hard to tell with the guy who's their informant or, the inside man. It was like, he could be alive because he technically just got knocked out. So he could pop up again if they make that relevant and kind of have him be like, all right, I don't know. Cause they don't really do cameras. It's a weird thing. Like sometimes they have certain technology. Sometimes they don't. It's really weird with Star Wars where it's like, do they have cameras? Do they not have cameras? So who knows what they're going to do with that? But it was very interesting. I was like, okay, so basically everybody dies off. We have Andor, the kid gets crushed on the ship. We have Andor, crushed kid, the leader of the group, and then the guy who we find out later is an absolute douchebag. And then the woman that they leave behind. And she just switches outfits. She walks out and is like, I hope she's safe. And I don't know if they'll ever go back to her or what. It's just like, I assume she is. So the whole episode, they're going through, they're dressed up. They basically just go in as escorts, at the back. And I was like, all right, let's see how this plays out. Because I think we all knew this. It's going to go wrong somehow. It could have been perfect, but it won't be. And so they're going through everything's, even from the beginning, technically everything was behind because they're like, yo, where's she at? Because we're already like technically it was wrong from the beginning, but things start to pick up a little bit. They put the jammer on, everything's good, seemingly. So they're going through, they have the people down. It's like, hey, you get on the ground, take this person out. Everybody gets arrested. They don't end up killing anybody from the beginning. And it's like, all right, put the kid here, put the wife here, everybody on the knees, everybody back off. Of course, the dude, the guy, the visitor or whatever, he has a gun, he pulls it on the kid, and it's like, let this other kid go. That's like the main thing. Like he's worried about the kid. Trying to humanize the people in the Empire. Like obviously it's an innocent child, but they weren't really going in to kill anybody anyway. So and plus it's obviously the context of like knowing who the Empire truly is. But it's like, okay, they're humanizing this guy. The first thing he says is let the child go. And it's like, okay, that was the first thing on his mind. And so they're going through. Everybody gets, tied up. Everything is shut off. Everything is going fine. And then it's like, all right, we got the Rolodexes or whatever. Obviously not a Rolodex, but they got the payroll. And things once again, seemingly are going well. And all that screws up the entire mission is that they use the intercom system, or not the intercom, but just their earbuds. And that was it. And the dude picks up some random chatter and it's like, something's wrong. So of course he calls the base. There's no response. He gathers the guys and it's like, something's wrong. We need to go in. And then all hell breaks loose. Everybody just starts dropping like flies. The guy had a heart attack, which I did not see coming. Like I knew he was sweating, but I'm like, this dude just had a straight up heart attack. Like he has a heart attack. He's down. And then they're just shots blasting off. Everybody's just dropping like flies. Andor almost gets killed. The kid saves him. And it was crazy. It was like, okay, they take off. They actually make it. And then as they're kind of getting ready to take off, we see that the TIE fighters have been called because the system was open to call them from that base. So they're getting ready to hop in their ships, which is pretty cool to see. And, they dropped. I like how they kind of did the full silhouettes, which they also probably did because the people were CG when they were technically dropping into the ship. But it looked better because it was technically no color. It's just like black silhouettes. So I was like, that probably made it a lot easier for them. But they hop in the ships, they take off. And then we have an amazing moment, which I knew we were going to see. It was like, look, they explain the eye. We're going to see the eye. It's going to go crazy. They're going to have to escape through the eye and it's going to be wild. And it was good. It was really well done. And they're going through, the TIE fighters didn't do as much as I expected, which I didn't think they'd actually kill him. I thought they would at least hit him once though, if I'm being totally honest. And it was like, they were trying and they were just missing and then getting hit by, little asteroids coming in. And I love the fact that they were showing, even on the ship that Andor was on, as they were going up, they were showing little cracks in the window because there were like basically small asteroids that we couldn't really see flying next to them or, kind of bouncing around in the sky. So we'd see all these little cracks and stuff. And I was like, that's actually really cool. Cause I was curious how that was going to play out if they were going to show, a window kind of burst or so. Obviously they couldn't do it on their ship because that would have flat out killed the main character. But I was like, they might show that on the TIE fighter, but they kind of didn't. It was really just like it cracked. And then all you saw was just like, it just blew up entirely. So I was like, this is a really cool sequence. He's like, I can't go any higher. Like we're going to die. tells them to climb. He shoots through, he dives down, and then they hop back up and they're safe. They make their grand escape. It's all over the news. And it's like, all right, we got to get this kid to a doctor. It turns out they had one in the contingency plan. As everyone said from all the reviews I saw, made me think of Maskanata. So I instantly assumed it was a woman because I was just like, the first thing that came to mind was Maskanata. So I was like, oh, it's a woman. It was a guy though, four-armed guy, which makes it really interesting because that species is so different then, because this dude is super tall. Maskanata was super short. She had just 2 arms and he has 4 arms. So I'm like, that's a crazy species where it's the same species, but he's really tall and has 4 arms, and she's really short and has 2 arms. Like that's such a drastic difference. So I was like, that's really interesting within kind of one, lineage of a species. I was like, that's actually pretty crazy. So, they tried, and I thought for sure they were going to save the kid just because of the whole doctor element. And it turns out he still ends up dying, because I was like, oh, he gets crushed. And I was like, well, that's a crazy way to go. Like they crush his legs or the bottom half of his body. They tried to help him out, and I was like, I think he's like the 4th person to have gotten the cybernetics, or at least they attempted to do that, but it obviously doesn't work for him in his case, which is unfortunate. But as that's happening, Andor's sitting outside. He's sitting with whatever the dude's name was that I don't care about, and he's like, you know how many credits are in there? And it's like, like 400 million or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. He's the usual thing is like 400 million credits. And I thought, because sometimes they do that speech where it's like, that's how much money is in there, and we're just giving it up, and we're, the greater good. It's are we crazy? He brings up the question, but he just goes right in, and it's like, it's none of the philosophical stuff of like, man, how crazy are we to have this much money just to give it away? He was just like, oh no, let's just take the money and then we leave. It's me versus the world. It's me with my back against the wall. Everyone else is my enemy. I never even had a brother, so crazy. His plan, clearly, once he says that, it was like, oh, so his plan the entire time was to kill all of them. He was going to kill every single person that was left, and he was going to take that money. His lie was that he had a brother. That's a huge deal. Like, Andor obviously is told to lie and stuff like that, and then he just admits, I'm here for the money. But it was like, oh, this guy pretended to care about the cause and have, want to have revenge and all this stuff. He just wanted the money the entire time. Like, once that came out, I was like, he only wanted to kill them. Like, hopefully, that was his whole thing. And it was referenced. I saw a review where people mentioned it. There was definitely that scene where it was like, that wasn't great cover fire, and that dude got killed, and it was really weird. And I was like, that may have actually been on purpose, because it's like, oh, well, it's an easy way to have him get knocked out, and then that's one less person. He gets killed as he's running, because I don't fire as much as I probably should, and then that's the money. It's easier for me to take everybody, especially considering he was probably aside from Andor, he was the toughest challenge because he was a straight up stormtrooper. So he had way more training than anyone else. Even if they could shoot a gun and stuff, it's like there are levels to the skill. So it kind of made a lot of sense that he would give him like just enough fire to run out. And then it's like, let me just sit back. Oh, he's dead. Dang, that's crazy. One less person though. So I think that was his plan the entire time. And he's talking, and Andor, he's listening. He's like, well, what about me? And when he talks about everyone being against him, and it's like, hey, 200 million credits is enough for me to forget about you. We can go off to this moon or whatever that I know about. Nobody's home. Split up. Excuse me. Split up the money, go our separate ways. Life is good. And he's doing his spiel, and I'm just like, he has to die. That's all I was thinking. Like, especially, like I said, the brother thing was the definitive moment where I was like, oh, this was always his plan. He knew for sure. That was it. I was like, he wanted everybody to be gone so he could get this money. And he's talking and talking, and Andor pulls a Han Solo. It was just like, boom, in the middle of a sentence, shoots him right in the chest, and he's down. And that was a crazy moment. I was like, wow, this is super sad. Like, they killed everybody. There's like 3 people left. Like I said, there were so many characters. I thought they were going to do like 2 people die, maybe 2 people. They were like, nah, it's going to be everybody. It's just about everybody. They literally left the planet, so we still don't know. Like I said, the woman who was left behind, she could be safe. Could be in danger. Who knows? But crazy sequence. He goes in, he explains everything, and it makes sense that he'd have the gun drawn because it's like, you already didn't trust me a lot, so I just have to be like, hey, just don't try to quick draw me. It was to keep himself protected so he could actually explain himself, because it would be a lot harder because they already didn't trust him. So it was like, look, I know I'm pointing the gun at you. It's not what you think though. This is how it happened. You might not believe me. I'm taking what I need. And him giving the crystal back, I think was like the big thing where once she took it, it was like, oh, okay, he's legit, because he easily could have just kept the gun on me, ran off to the ship, or straight up killed her. He could have killed her like nobody was going to do anything. He could have killed them both and taken everything. So it was like, okay, he easily has me dead to rights, both of us. But he gave me back the crystal and was specifically like, look, I'm taking what I was promised. I don't even want the crystal, which I could get an extra 30,000 credits on. Give this to your friend. Tell him I'm out. And that's when she was kind of like, oh, okay. It sucks to hear. Like at the last second, this dude was going to like shoot us all in the back and you took him out for us. But I believe you now. So that's how she ends up giving him the manifesto, where it's like, all right, he's actually worth having it at least. So she gives him the manifesto. He doesn't want it, but of course he takes it, and that's going to be his thing. He's going to read it in the next episode or something and be like, that kid. And then of course he's going to go right back. And that's how he's going to fight the good fight. But great ending. Love the way it was handled. Of course, it's news all over the effing place. We have Mon Mothma doing her thing, and she realizes people are just leaving, which I don't think we've ever seen that place so empty before. In the movies, it's always like everybody's in there. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, if they throw an ET in here, I wouldn't be too mad about it. But they don't do that. But she realizes everybody's leaving. It's like, what is going on? So she looks down and she's like, holy crap, it happened. And so we go back to was it Skarsgård? I think I can remember the actor's name. I can't think of the character's name. I'm so bad at that. I remember actors' names, but not characters. He finds out about the news when the guy's like, you have anything from Aldani? He's like, I'm sorry, what? And it's like, oh yeah, huge rebel attack. Like, it's all over the news. And he goes back and he just does a huge laugh and he has a sigh of relief, and then it's over. And it was a painful ending because I'm like, I don't know if I ever wanted more in my life. I'm like, please just give me like a few extra minutes or something. It's painful watching this show end, where I'm just like, I need more. Like, it drove me nuts. It ended and I was just like, I felt like almost dead inside. I was like, I can't have more than that. Like, that was amazing. And I can't have like just a little more. And it was just like, no, this is it. See you next week. And it crushes me. Like, I don't think I've watched a show in a long time where the cliffhangers have been so good, where I'm just like, I just cannot wait to see what happens next, especially because we're going into the next arc. It makes it even more exciting because everything's done now. And now it's just, it almost feels like a brand new section of the series, because it's going to be, every 3 episodes. But absolutely love the finale. Or, well, I can't even say that. It's not the finale. That's how it felt. It was technically like a mid-season finale, but it's just coming back next week. But that's definitely what it felt like. It was definitely a mid-season finale sort of episode. And it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed episode 5 as well, leading into the big heist and everything. So I was excited for that too. But all of it was good. I'm sure the show's going to be great. Like I said, my main theory right now is that we're going to focus on, now that Andor is kind of doing his thing, it's going to be exactly how he decided once and for all. This is how I get into the rebellion. And then on the other side of that coin is the one man who truly hates this guy right now, whose name, I believe his name is Sybil, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's going to be him kind of getting where he needs to be to chase Andor down again. So I'm looking forward to that. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about the last 2 episodes, but for sure, the eye and the heist and the visuals of all of that and just how the mission went, we'd love to know your thoughts on that. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And we've got 6 more to go. Like I said, we're halfway through. We got 6 more to go. I do believe there's a trailer that recently came out, or maybe it was an old trailer that I just hadn't seen yet. So I know there's a lot more stuff coming up. There's quite a few elements that we haven't seen just yet, because I think there's still the scene from like the first trailer where Andor was in like a full black outfit, if I'm not mistaken. And he was by himself during that sequence, and he was somewhere else, and he was like in a black outfit, because they were kind of in all the gray outfits today. And he was in like a black outfit, and the background was like really lit up in white. So it wasn't something that we've gotten yet. And I'm like, okay, so he does this twice where he's like in disguise, because I assumed that was going to be in this one. Like, oh, well, he's going to be in the costume and stuff. And I don't think that was this, unless I just didn't realize it. But it seemed like he was in a much bigger room, and he was like in a full black outfit walking by himself, and it was like a full white background. So I think he's going to be in disguise a second time in this series. So that's going to be really cool. But we'll love to know your thoughts and what you guys are hoping for and expecting to see in the next, I guess, the second half of this season. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.